Hello everyone, I am the Golden Scouta, and welcome to my Steins Gate 0, Episode 1 review. God, it feels so good to say that instead of Dragon Ball Super, but let's move on. I'm gonna get this out of the way. This first episode was great, and I may have enjoyed it more than Episode 1 of the original Steins Gate. But that could also be because I'm already familiar and invested in the characters and story, so take that with a grain of salt. Also, do forgive me if I mispronounce a name, and feel free to correct me if I do. But without further ado, let us begin! So, this episode opens up in the apocalyptic future that we've been told about in the original Steins Gate, and sets the stage that World War III is still going to happen in this beta timeline. And I can tell you right now, like in the last series, there are going to be small details in this episode or future episodes that may not become important until later. Such as the girl that Mayuri is with, since we didn't get a clear look at her. I'm wondering who that person is and what her relation to Mayuri is. Because the way that it was framed, it might be just some random person, but I don't think that. I think that it might be someone really important to the story, but we'll see about that later on. So let's talk about Okabe's current mental state. He obviously has PTSD from seeing Mayuri and Kurisu die countless times in front of him. And it's kinda heartbreaking seeing him in this state where he's kind of withdrawn, and not seeming to have those over-the-top goofy moments in him anymore. He ditched the whole Kiyoma name and stopped using the text message microwave time machine. This reminds me of whenever you know someone who's very goofy and joke-cracking, kinda has this happy personality, and then something tragic happens to them, like maybe they lose a sister or their mother, and they become a shell of their former selves. And this is what I get from Okabe right now. He's kind of a shell of his former self. And I do admit, I'm going to miss the whole "Mwahahaha! I am Kiyoma, a mad scientist, and you, Mayuri, are my hostage." But I am looking forward into delving into his psyche more as this series goes on, since I do typically like dark storylines. I do have to say that Okabe's mental image of all the Kurisus dying, and dying by his hand nonetheless, in some world lines, and all of his shocked and horrified expressions, really pulls those heartstrings. It really makes you sympathize with him on how he doesn't want to time travel anymore, since he's such a broken man after going what he went through. And even though this episode had its dark and sad moments, and just tone overall, there were a few scenes that had me cracking up. Mayuri and the kitty girl giving Okabe crap for the group dates and being like, "Oh, you're such a perv." And the whole quote that Okabe said like, "Oh, Daru would call the little 21-year-old legal loli." And Suzuya wrestling with Okabe. Those are all such great moments. And this episode just had a bunch of great character interactions that made me happy to be back with these cast of characters. And speaking of Suzuya, seeing her again was really nice, and I hope that she doesn't meet any kind of similar fate as she did in the Alpha timeline. And this brings us to Daru and Yuki. This is one of the biggest curiosities I have about this series, plus a prediction I'm going to make. And no, I have not read the visual novel this anime is based off of, nor have I played the game on PS4. So I am going into this series completely blind, aside from a short, spoiler-free summary I read. With Daru fully aware about him and Yuki eventually getting together and conceiving Suzuya, I wonder if that is going to complicate things. In this episode, Suzuya said that her still existing, despite Daru's knowledge, means that it's not problematic. So I'm wondering if there might be something similar to Back to the Future, where Daru screws up somehow, and either Suzuya fades away, or she has to prevent that from happening. Time will definitely tell on that one. And lastly, before I wrap up the review, I want to talk about the ending. Amadeus, and artificial intelligence. I have heard that this is going to be the means to how Okabe is going to time travel in this series, and I'm curious as exactly how that is going to happen and why. But maybe since Kurisu is one of the AIs, that will be the reason how. I'm just so curious and excited to see what's going to happen next. Please don't spoil me, guys. And so, that concludes my review for episode 1 of Steins Gate Zero, which was such a great start to this anime, and it already has me hooked. I'm ditching my rating system for this series because I don't think the scores will fluctuate too much, as I see myself giving mostly 9 out of 10s and 10 out of 10s for pretty much every episode. I know for those of you who watched my Dragon Ball Super reviews might be taken back by this review since you're so used to me ranting most of the time, but you get positive, Scouter. That is, until I review a shitty series again. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.